Hey, this is our reflection conversation for the Mount Everest simulation. I was Adan, I was the physician. That was my role for the simulation.
And I'm Tatiana, I was the leader in the simulation.
I'm Taylor, I was a photographer.
I'm Josh, I was the environmentalist.
I'm Lauren, I was the marathon.
What
we started off with when we all got together to do the simulation was we all looked at our profiles, read through our stories, and we decided to write all of our goals on the whiteboard. Any goals that might conflict with each other, and we highlighted the ones that we all were able to agree on, like trying to reach
Nothing
the
should be
summit and
ruled
stuff
out
like
right
that.
away.
Like all of
because
voice
none of us had done an
and then
Everest
another
simulation
goal that
before,
we
so
found was pretty
I
common.
was thinking at the time we should go into it and kind of feel it out, and then
as well as
maybe we can lean in a direction before we go in there, but
we
not
crossed out
completely rule
goals that
something
we
out.
thought would not
Everybody was pretty on board
possible.
with that.
Like a few climbers wanted to stay at like a camp for 2 nights in a row, which would have like kept us from being able to summit.
Staying at the first 2 camps is probably easier than staying at the last, camp 4, because it's farther.
And
We
it
didn't
was
know
colder.
if we were going to make it, or if anybody was going to get really
Then when
sick.
we got together and met as a group, Lauren used the whiteboard to figure out when we could all meet for our next meeting. So the institution is the University of Colorado Boulder, and the system is our class in this group, as well as the simulation.
And then within Mount Everest, there was just like the system of Mount Everest that had the agents and the inputs and the outputs and the processes and boundaries. And like the agents would have been us as climbers, as well as the rescue team that me and Josh got to utilize. And then the Sherpas who brought the canisters for us for at Camp 4. And then for the boundaries and processes and stuff, like we had to decide how far we'd climb every day and like if we'd be able to handle that, as well as the weather conditions and like whether Adan needed to give out any medical supplies or not. Another thing that we see within the systems are how we respect the boundaries of the system regarding both the mountain as well as this group. And it's like none of us like screamed at each other or cussed each other out when we were making decisions or anything. None of us quit the simulation altogether. Everybody cooperated when we were on Mount Everest and respected the rules up there. Like you can only go up the camps and you can't skip camps and stuff like that. And it's like none of us showed up here naked or did anything horrible like that.
Yeah.
We expected all the social norms of us as students.
So we utilized communication as constructive because we were all in different social worlds, both in the simulation and then a step back in the group and then a step back in the institution that is the university. So we definitely did not use the transmission model of communication because that would have been just ineffective. Although we were assigned a leader, Tatiana was designated as the leader. It wasn't a one-way communication, right? We all put in input, so everyone was kind of constructing this social world in the group context.
Especially since we all had different priorities and different backstories and stuff, how Josh was Italian, I believe it was, and how he was so concerned about the environment, whereas I just wanted to get some money for making it up the mountain and be on the cover of magazines and stuff. Like it was all very different goals within our social worlds.
Yeah, definitely, and it also exemplified communication as practice because we were all practicing in the group context. We were texting, we were emailing, we were on the doodle thing. And then we were in person during the actual simulation, so that became the normative mode of communication, and I think that that sort of laid back, but still with a sense of professionalism, allowed us to complete the task.
And as a practice, it also improved greatly as we got to know each other better, because at first we didn't talk at all until the first meeting, and after that first meeting we started communicating more often. We were talking more about what we were doing and what our ideas on things, so we definitely improved in that practice.
Yeah, definitely allowed to have meaningful conversation.
And that definitely leads into our interaction design. Like the simulation is designed to kind of have problems because when we wrote down all of our goals, everybody had different individual goals that conflicted with other people's, but we tried to compromise and get our common goals that we needed to do for the simulation, as well as as a group in the class. We all had our group goal is to finish this project, to do well in this project, and I guess individually we all wanted to do well in the class too.
Exactly.
We all have other classes too that those are goals that kind of conflict if you have.
Yeah, so we
Still
clearly
a lot
had to
going on.
collaborate and manage all the conflicts.
Yeah,
see who was deciding what decisions were going to be made.
And then, like, I feel like the biggest was probably, like, day 4 and 5, where we were in Camp 3 and Camp 4, because Camp 3 we were all in critical condition, and it was like if we had already stayed an extra day at Camp 2, so if we decided to stay at Camp 3 so we could all get healthier, then we wouldn't be able to summit, and then we had that same issue with Camp 4. Like, it was the decision, like, should we summit, or should we try to continue avoiding rescue, should we try to use medical supplies, like, just a lot of different goals, and
Or like with the oxygen.
yeah, and with the oxygen.
Like, they give you 20 canisters and there's 4 people, but then, I don't, 3 out of 5 of us made it.
Yeah,
Even though we tried to do some math and try and figure out how much everybody needed.
Like,
It didn't seem like enough.
I had like more
It
than
was, like,
double than everyone.
Huge constraint.
Still didn't help.
Exactly.
People that got like almost the most
Yeah.
didn't make it.
It was us two who had the most. Like, we didn't make it at all. Even with the map and stuff, it's like we knew that it wasn't going to come out to be enough. So it was who has the best chance of making it up there, and it turned out that me and Josh did not. So that's always fun.
Yeah, so we all had to make sacrifices.
I think another key element of this whole thing was our group context too. Like, we all had the same common goal of achieving a good grade on the project and of completing as many goals within the simulation as possible. I mean, we all showed up on time, relatively enough. We all emailed back and forth. We did what was put in for us, but I think one problem where we strayed away was, even though we had the common goal of all reaching the top, whenever an individual had a chance to just go and complete a goal for themselves, I believe it was just...
It was me.
Taylor
I had the
and Adan.
option to go take pictures, and then right after that, I got very, very sick with altitude sickness and
Severe
frostbite,
frostbite.
severe frostbite,
Yeah.
and my mental acuity was very low.
You did research too, right?
Yeah, I did research too, and the same effects happened to me. So obviously the afterlife of those decisions clearly affected our character, and then the end goal, or the end summation of the goals, where we accomplished ours, but the team had a very low percentage.
Sometimes where, like, I wanted to stay at Group 1, or Campsite 1 and Campsite 2 for an extra day, but Josh wanted to stay at Campsite 4 for an extra day, so he kind of gave up. Eventually he gave up his goal, and, like, for my goals, like, let me stay at Group 2 an extra day. And so even though we all had our own goals and, like, needed to complete it together, but we kind of took one for the team for me.
Yeah, so in terms of the 5 dysfunctions, right, we all trusted each other that we were kind of going to make somewhat of good decisions, and then we all were fine with conflict.
We also showed a great commitment to this project and our teammates. The original day that we were supposed to be meeting was a Sunday, and I told the team that I would be back here by 4 o'clock. I'd be able to make it on time despite working in the morning, and that almost didn't happen. I was running very late from work, but I made it very clear to my coworkers, I really need to go. I have a commitment that I need to be back on campus for in time. So I made sure that I got back here on time, and that this was one of my main priorities.
Yeah, it's a pretty huge deal, not being able to track a fantasy team.
It's tough stuff. It's really hard.
Even though we did not summit, all of us made it to Camp 4, which is
Yeah,
pretty
so
far.
our result
I thought
was-
that was pretty good that we did manage to stay as a team together for a very long time, even though we got sick.
Mm-hmm.
And we still tried to stay as a team. in making the decision to all summit together instead of me and Josh sitting behind, like, I think that was still the correct decision.
Goal simulation itself, I think it was kind of like a case study for us where we got to document our experiences and then go back and look at them, as well as like in the report or even in our discussions. Because we did debrief after the simulation and we were like, this is what we achieved, this is your percentages that everybody made, and this is how we think we did as a team, regardless of the numbers. And I think that that's pretty cool. Like this whole project is kind of like a case study to look back and be like, this is how you interact as a group, and this is how you actually apply all of these concepts. Problem case study because it required us to take on a role and make decisions as protagonists, which in the simulation we each had a role and we each had to make a decision like what camp are we moving to, who's getting an inhaler, who's getting oxygen or gamma bags, or I think you had to decide what the weather was like.
Yeah, exactly. Like decide whether because there was another team, they told us in the simulation like, oh, their equipment isn't working, like you gotta predict the weather for them and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then like taking pictures. All of those were decisions, and from a specific example to general principles, which is this whole video in itself is us using our inductive reasoning from our case study in the simulation to like relate it to all the concepts that we've learned in class. And then practical reasoning was just like common sense, like the environmentalist or Josh needs an inhaler because he won't make it to the next camp, so we need to give him an inhaler.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.